We've covered a lot of ground when dealing with the history API, and in this video, we're going to discuss this go method as well as the back and forward methods. Now, you could keep things really simple if you wanted and just simply forget that back and forward exist entirely. We could just use the go method exclusively. It's up to you if you want to use back and forward. I quite like using go and then passing in a delta, i.e. a number. So in this lesson, we're going to bind some buttons to our page and then essentially navigate back and forth. So we're going to have button type of button, close off our button tag, duplicate this and change this to forward. We can then go ahead and add some classes. We can add back and then subsequently add in forward. So with this in mind, let's go and grab our back and forward buttons by using a query selector. So info, we can change over to back. Similarly, change this to forward. So now we've got a back button, we've got a forward button. What we're going to do is then click on them and then go back and forward programmatically with the history API. So we've got const forward, const back. So what we're going to do above our links is then bind some of these events. So we can say back, add event listener. We want to bind a click event. Now we're not going to break out any functions here. We're just going to simply say history.back. Duplicate our event listener, change this over to forward and use history.forward. That's actually all we need to do. We can then click on Luigi, Yoshi, Wario. We can then click back. However, we're not going to see the UI change. We will, however, see the URL change. So keep an eye on the URL. We can see that we've gone back to Yoshi. We go back again. This takes us back to Luigi and then back to Mario. So you may be wondering why the URL is updating, but our UI isn't updating. And this is where the pop state event comes into play, where we can essentially grab the data that we've set in each history entry. So we have this history stack. Each of them has a piece of data assigned to it. So when we are navigating back and forth, we can then ask for that particular piece of data depending on what entry we are currently in. Now, before we get onto that, and this is probably going to finish off our chapter nicely, we can, as I said, forget about these history.back and history.forward. It might be that we want to adopt a strategy that just uses the go, and you can see that we have this delta argument. So if we change both of these over to go, I quite like this approach because it's very simple, and we could, for example, use a length of something and then pass in the length of 2 or 3 perhaps, and then it would skip back a certain number of entries. So if we want to go forward, you can imagine this like a chess piece, for example. We want to just move once in our stack. If we want to go backwards, we then simply minus 1, so we go backwards in the stack. If we then save this out, we can then go forward, forward, forward. You can see the URLs changing and back, back, back. History.back and history.go -1 are the exact same. Similarly, history.forward and history.go with an argument of 1 are identical as well. Back and forward are simply just utilities that make this a little bit more readable, and it's completely up to you which you wish to adopt. So now we've learned about this history.go, there is in fact an event that's occurring under the scenes, and that is the pop state event. So let's go ahead and finish off this chapter by learning about the pop state.